this area northwest of Eddyville. This is radar indicated rotation with this storm. And again, this warning is just issued. So as we take a look at the broader view of things, this is in the midst of a severe thunderstorm warning that's in effect until 8:45. That's the yellow area you see there. And the threat along this line in general would come in the form of wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. Let's take a look at where we can expect this storm to be and put a storm track on this. So right in here, this particular warning has the storm moving off to the north and to the east at about 40 miles an hour. That's been the storm movement we've seen throughout the evening tonight with these storms. And again, this rotation, radar indicated, this storm moving off to the northeast at 50. So this has accelerated a bit. Let's put a storm track on this. It would be right in this particular area. And let's take a look at the following towns at the following times in terms of the arrival of this rotation. Again, nothing has been confirmed on the ground, but we're talking about the town of Beacon coming up here in about 7 minutes. Oskaloosa itself at about 8:11. Rose Hill at 8:22 and Delta at about 8:30. And again, this storm moving to the northeast at around 50 miles per hour. All along this line of storms, we're talking about wind gusts to near 60 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and put this in motion for you here and widen out the view of this entire line of storms. This is the second line of storms to go through this part of the state. And it's moving through air that has already been worked over by storms earlier in the night. So the thought was that perhaps it would have a more difficult time taking that more dense rain-cooled air and lifting it up from the surface. There you see the outlines of the two warnings that are in effect. So that rotation, that possible tornado is occurring just to the north of the bow in that line, so kind of right in here. And we would call this a comma head feature. Let me take a look at the velocity again on this storm. And again, we just to the southeast of Oskaloosa. The rotation itself, probably around 3 miles wide. When you're talking about the strongest area of rotation moving toward and away from the radar. And again, moving to the north at right about 50 miles per hour. I'm going to go back and get rid of the velocity here a second. So widen out the view a little bit for you here and show you the warned area, which includes obviously the Oskaloosa area. You folks should be taking shelter as the storm would be near you in about 5 minutes. We're moving toward some other towns in that area, just southeast of Pella. If you're near Lighton, you'll want to be taking shelter just to be safe. And remember, when I say taking shelter, put as many walls and as many ceilings between you and the storm as you can. This would be right along Highway 92 coming into Oskaloosa. Again, this is a radar-indicated tornado warning. It's obviously difficult to deal with visualizing a tornado at this time of night when you have heavy rainfall surrounding the tornado itself, as you do here, because the storm itself would be rain-wrapped. Again, that tornado warning in effect until 8:30. Let me give you a look at the entire line of storms for those of you that are under the effect of this severe thunderstorm warning and assume the movement is to the northeast at around 50 miles an hour. That would be around Oskaloosa by 8:05. So between 8:05 and 8:10 Oskaloosa, that's when you're going to be under the threat of both wind gusts to 60 and the possibility of a tornado. Again, this rotation is indicated by radar. Ottumwa, the severe thunderstorm warning and the line of storms would be affecting you at around 8:16, Sigourney around 8:31. We're getting, as this storm track area moves to the east, out of our viewing area, but perhaps you have friends or relatives in Keota, perhaps you have some in Fairfield. 8:47 and 8:54 respectively is where the storm will be as it continues to move in that direction. All right, back to the tornado warning here. The red area you see on your map. And I want to take a look at the velocity and see what we have here for the latest scan. So it's right in here where you see the green meets the red. That's where the rotation would be. Frankly, on radar, It doesn't look to be terribly strong right now, but at this distance from the radar, it would be a few thousand feet above the ground where the radar is sampling the storm. So we're not necessarily seeing what's happening right at the surface with that storm. Let's update the storm track here. And again, the movement northeast at around 50 miles per hour, and tell you when the time of arrival is. And this would be for the tornado warning itself. Oskaloosa at 8:12. Rose Hill at 8:23. There's a new scan that just came in. Spring Valley at 8:26. Whatcheer at 8:32. That's when we expect those storms to arrive in your area. Nothing new coming in from the National Weather Service. We had a gust at about 7:38 from Lucas, Iowa to 62 miles per hour. And when you look at the winds aloft right now and assume that the storm is going to be able to maybe drag some of those winds down to the surface along with precipitation, that's how you kind of figure out, okay, how strong are the wind gusts going to be out of these storms? And the consensus is we're looking at the possibility of gusts around 60. A lot of times when you have this bowing in the line like that, like we have here, you'll have right in this comma head area is where you'll see on occasion rotation. So it would be right in here. This kind of forms the shape of a comma right in here, and that's why it has that name. And so that's the area we watch for the possibility of rotation. And again, this is all being sampled by radar. I'm looking at radar at another source here on another screen, and the rotation is staying there. It's consistent, but it's not terribly strong right now. And as I mentioned earlier, the air at the surface here has already been passed over by storms. So those storms have dragged cool air to the surface, and because of that, it's tougher for the storms. First of all, there's not as much energy in the air at the surface. Second of all, the air is a bit more dense, and so it's tougher for the storms to be able to use that and strengthen the rotation in that storm. So out of an abundance of caution and out of the presence of rotation on the radar, that's what the Weather Service is looking at here as they watch this line of storms move northeast. There you see the entire area of rain. That's the good news tonight, is obviously we've seen some much needed rainfall from these storms. There are several areas that have now over an inch of rain. You see that rain as we look back here toward the metro and toward Creston. The back edge of that rain is approaching. Kind of looked earlier like it would end around 9 or 10 for the most part, and that appears to still be the case, although I think we'll see some lingering showers here and there during the overnight hours, and I think a lot of that's going to be gone by the morning drive, and we'll be left with some much cooler air across the state. All this is happening because we had these 2 very warm days in Iowa, and then we've brought a cold front into the state. And let me see if I can show you the type of temperature change we're dealing with here. I got to switch to a different graphic source here, but these are the temperatures we're seeing across the state right now. So as you look to the northwest, Storm Lake is in the 40s. All of northwest Iowa is in the 40s right now. And we still have a temperature in Mount Pleasant of 70 degrees. So when this cold front comes in, it acts like a wedge, like a lifting mechanism, gets the air at the surface to rise, and that's how we get thunderstorms to form. And that's why we're seeing the storms and obviously the much needed rain we're seeing across the state. I don't have any new information again from the folks that issued the warning. The radar indicated rotation was what's triggered this particular tornado warning. And the Weather Service says, it's true, that at the time the velocity data was kind of messy down there. But there certainly has been a persistent area of rotation with that storm as it's moved to the north and to the east. Let me get the radar back up here for you. There's what's left of the warning. They've canceled the tornado warning now for Marion and for Poweshiek counties. So it's Mahaska and Wapello that are still under the tornado warning in effect here for 19 more minutes. Let's take a look at the velocity now with this storm and see what the latest radar scan has brought, again, you see the greens right around Oskaloosa. That would indicate air moving toward the radar, which would be up in Johnston, and you see the reds right next to it, just north of Eddyville there, between Eddyville and Oskaloosa, and that's air moving away. So in between, what I always tell kids at school talks is imagine making a snake with Play-Doh, and you're creating kind of a column of rotating air right in that area, and that's what we use the NEXRAD, the Doppler radar for, to look for rotation in these storms. And right now, certainly, as you can tell, the rotation is present. It's just not particularly strong, and we're not seeing any reports from the surface with this storm of anything in the way of a tornado or any of these stronger winds being brought down to the ground with this storm. And so we're going to continue to watch this, though. And again, that's the policy here. If there's a tornado warning, if we have lives or property that are being threatened, we're on the air here at WHO 13 to keep folks safe and to keep them informed, especially the folks in the area that are affected by this particular tornado warning. Again, we're looking at this tornado warning. We're also looking at a severe thunderstorm warning in the area in yellow that you see there. The severe thunderstorm warning that was in effect for Marion County has been canceled. So they shaved Marion County off the backside of that severe thunderstorm warning. I haven't put a storm track on that for a bit. Movement of these is to the east at around 50 miles an hour. These storms have accelerated as we've gone through the evening here. So Ottumwa coming up here in about 6 minutes, Sigourney at 8:34, and then we start getting out of our viewing area with the other towns there. But, again, with this thunderstorm warning, not the tornado warning, but the thunderstorm warning, the threat here would come in the form of these wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. We've had very few hail reports tonight. Basically just wind and, of course, the heavy rain we've seen with this storm. Back to update you on the tornado warning, and that rotation is not strengthening. This is really doing the same thing we've seen all throughout the area, all throughout the evening. When we have rotation in areas of these storms, it persists, but it's not strengthening and it's not getting particularly strong. That would be right just southeast of Oskaloosa. So right in this area is where that would be. And again, let's put a storm track on that and get you updated with the new position of that rotation. So Rose Hill 822, Whatshare 831, and then Sigourney at 837. Again, when we're talking about a tornado warning, this is what we're talking about in terms of tornado safety. If the tornado were to be produced and get close to the ground, you want to put as many walls and as many ceilings as you can between you and the storm. So if you don't have a basement, a closet is a good place to go. If you don't have a basement, a bathroom is a good place to go, in particular the bathtub. That's the safest thing to do, is to keep yourself away from those strong winds that may occur with a tornado moving through. Taking a look back at the radar again here over central Iowa, I want to broaden out the view and show you the entire area of precipitation over the central part of the state. We still obviously have lightning out there. We have heavy rainfall. You want to be careful on the roadways tonight. We have seen ponding. We've seen street flooding. And I think we're kind of done with the window of time when we're going to have slippery roads, just because we haven't had rainfall for so long. We've got dust and oil that's accumulated on the roadways. And a lot of times when you haven't had rain for a while and that water gets on the roads, you end up with slippery spots just from that. But I think with the rain that's moved through, we're probably done. You can almost tell by looking at the radar picture there that this storm is accelerating and moving off to the east. Again, we continue to see nothing in the way of any information coming into the chat that we share with folks at the Weather Service. We also share it with other media members from all over the state. And that way, when information comes in, we all benefit from it, and we can all share it, and we can all use it to warn folks and to keep them safe. I'm just heading back to one of the computers, taking a look at the updated Twitter feed. Sometimes storm spotters will send information in that direction. I'm not seeing anything there except warning information at this time. But again, this tornado warning that you see there that I showed you just a bit ago is in effect until 8:30. Let's get that warning information back up on the screen as that warning continues here in central Iowa. Again, we have in yellow the severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 8:45. I'm betting that this storm is going to beat the warning and be out of the warned area by 8:45. So really in our viewing area, at least where most of our viewerships is now, we're looking at Mahaska County. Right now from 911 in Mahaska County, from a deputy down there, we're saying visibility on the north side of Oskaloosa is 0. So not a good time to drive out there. This would be a combination of the wind and the very heavy rain that they're seeing in that area. So not a time to travel at all, and that's obvious with a tornado warning in effect until 8:30. So again, that rotation, looking at a couple of radar sources here, it is weak. It is very broad. I want to take a look at, let's see here. The rotation itself is about 3.7 miles wide, and by looking at the velocity here, it doesn't look to be very strong at all, but it's right in that area just to the east of Oskaloosa, and it's moving to the northeast again at about 50 miles an hour. We want to continue to take this seriously because these storms can spin up tornadoes in a big hurry, and we've seen tonight these rotations in all of these storms persist and strengthen and weaken as they move off to the east. Again, Rose Hill, about 4 minutes it'll be in your area, and then out of our viewing area as it moves toward Whatcheer and, of course, South English. That's getting way east of the WHO 13 viewing area. Get that information off the screen. We don't want to forget about the thunderstorm warning. And again, with that warning, we're dealing with the possibility of wind gusts. It's the wind that we're worried about here in this yellow area. Actually, you can see part of this storm is racing out ahead of the outline of the warned area as it moves northeast at 50 miles an hour. So again, the information you're seeing on the screen here, Bloomfield, we have a few viewers down there, not officially in our viewing area. That would be at 828. And then we move toward areas that are out of the viewing area. So we're really talking about the edge of the viewing area now as this storm moves to the east. But I like to treat everybody like they live right here in the metro, all across central Iowa. And if you're experiencing a tornado warning, we're going to be on the air, keep you informed, and to keep you safe. And what I'm going to inform you of now around the Oskaloosa and Rose Hill areas is that, yes, we still have rotation where you are. I'm not seeing strong rotation there. And while it persists, it has not been strong, nearly as strong as it was when the warning was issued. That's kind of been the pattern tonight with these warnings that we've had out there. We had a tornado warning late this afternoon as well, and the storm started off with decent-looking rotation on radar, which quickly weakened, and that's what we've seen in this storm as well. There's your Rose Hill at 8:20, so that would be almost right about now is when that would be moving through. Notice there on the screen, the Weather Service has issued another severe thunderstorm warning downstream of the existing one, so they think that storm is going to stay strong enough, or this line of storms, that it's warranted a warning now further off to the east, and that's just been added for areas outside of the WHO 13 viewing area. Ottumwa, you're looking at, if folks are watching down there, you'd be looking at wind gusts to around 60, and as the deputy in Mahaska County reported out of Oskaloosa with that 0 visibility, well, that can happen all along this line. You're already dealing with, of course, the evening and dark conditions. Then you add in this very heavy rainfall and the strong winds, and you've got a recipe for trouble out on the roads. You've got ponding, you've got hydroplaning, just a good night to stay inside. And again, stay in safety, especially if you're in Mahaska County right now in the sound of my voice. The edge of the storm now reaching Ottumwa. The rotation in the storm would now be between Oskaloosa and Whatcheer, would be north of Cedar. It would kind of be right in this area here. And it was that rotation, at least when it was stronger earlier, that prompted this warning to be issued, this tornado warning that's in effect here for about another 9 minutes as it moves through Mahaska County. I doubt the Weather Service will get rid of this warning early just because there is still a little bit of rotation there. So we'll keep an eye out on word from them. Again, I've not seen any information coming into The Weather Service source from any of the media partners or the first responders, law enforcement that are out there. I'm going to check Twitter to see if there are any spotters out there seeing anything. There are not. And so we just continue to have this radar indicated tornado warning in effect until 8:30. Again, all these storms moving off to the northeast at 50 miles an hour. And in the areas in yellow there, the severe thunderstorm warnings, the threat would come in the form of winds to 60 miles an hour. We did have a gust earlier to 62 miles an hour. That was at about 20 minutes before 8 o'clock along this line of storms. Weather Service Des Moines now says a few weather stations, and these would be private weather stations in or near Oskaloosa, are reporting wind speeds of over 50 miles an hour. The official threshold for a severe thunderstorm warning is 58, so those wind speeds are getting close to that severe thunderstorm warning criteria, but for now, 50 miles an hour. Maybe a little bit of roof damage, maybe a little bit of tree damage with that sort of wind as that moves through. Let me update this. I want to take a look at the velocity again and see what we're getting. Very, very weak rotation there. And right now that would be around the Rose Hill area, but it's weak. Probably about 4 miles east of Oskaloosa, right around Rose Hill. If there is rotation in this storm, it would be right there. And again, I'll put a storm track on this, but we're going to be moving out of the WHO 13 viewing area pretty quickly. Rose Hill coming up pretty soon here, about 8:24. Again, that weak rotation is going to pass over, and then we move into Whatcheer, Sigourney, and South English as it continues off in that direction. Within that tornado warned area, of course, we could still be seeing wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. We are going to be seeing lightning. We can't forget about that. We're also going to be seeing some heavy rainfall that could cause slippery spots, ponding, hydroplaning on the roads. This is, again, the second line of storms that's moved through these areas of the state. Let's give you a look at the broad view here. This is a 3-hour radar loop. And so you can kind of see the earlier storms there at the beginning of the loop moving through Ottumwa, those lifting northeast and then dissipating. And as I mentioned, this is the second line of storms now that's moving through Oskaloosa and now Ottumwa. And these storms have accelerated. They're moving off to the northeast at around 50 miles an hour. Here is, we have a sky cam from Ottumwa right now, I've just been told, and there it is. You can see the heavy rain moving through. If you look down at the street lights, you'll kind of see those sheets of rain moving by and kind of the flickering of the lights as they do so. Wind gusts there, probably over 50 miles an hour, and if you watch, you'll see the camera in that high position shaking in those winds as that line of storms moves through. So thank you to the folks in the control room. That's a good look at what they're seeing at the surface there with that line of storms. Again, continuing northeast at about 50 miles an hour. The Weather Service will often look at, and we do as well, private weather stations. You can find those on the internet and get an idea. There's so much information out there now, surface weather-wise, as storms move through. There's a lot you can look at to see if the warning criteria have been verified, if you're seeing those wind gusts in excess of 58 miles an hour, what kind of rainfall you're seeing and how fast it's coming down. That can be an indication of what kind of visibilities you're dealing with and how it's going to affect the roadways in terms of ponding and slippery conditions and things like that. But again, just really weak rotation there between Oskaloosa and Sigourney. So this is the area moving toward, this is the area moving away. And in both cases, we're talking about some pretty weak winds here. I'm going to take a look at another source. We're talking about what we call gate-to-gate shear. So from the greens to the reds, probably 50 miles an hour. There's not a whole lot there. But as I've mentioned, this can all spin up pretty quickly in these situations. And what we've seen tonight along these two lines, this being the second, are areas of rotation that form. They tend to be kind of strong at the beginning. They maintain themselves, but they weaken fairly quickly. And that's exactly what this one has done. And I want to, on my other radar source here, look down the line, and I'm not seeing anything of concern down around Ottumwa and Bloomfield right now, other than the thunderstorm warning and the winds to 60 miles per hour. We've got about 4 more minutes of this tornado warning. I'm speculating here, just my opinion. I sort of doubt they're going to extend it beyond this area just because of the strength of the rotation now, which is pretty weak. But if there is rotation there, it would be right around the Rose Hill area. That's where it would be, again, very broad and very weak aloft. But you folks should still be taking cover in that area with that particular storm. So kind of right in here, and again, moving to the northeast at around 50 miles an hour. So right when the warning expires, that broad area of rotation would be near the town of Delta and then Sigourney as it continues off to the north and also to the east. Broadening the view out here, you can see the severe thunderstorm warned area here. That first warning, which also includes Ottumwa, and right along that line is where the possibility of wind gusts to 60 miles an hour will be with us here. Let me put a storm track on that, although again, a lot of this is going to be towns that are out of our viewing area, including all the towns you see there on that list, but perhaps you have folks traveling in that direction or you have folks over in those areas and you can kind of let them know what's coming and what we've seen here in central Iowa. About 2.5 minutes left on this tornado warning here. The severe thunderstorm warning will be in effect until 8:45, and then the warning out ahead of that, just in case there are folks that are interested, that is in effect until 9 p.m. That would include areas there you see just to the east of the WHO 13 viewing area. For those who have friends over there or know people who are traveling through that area, they will certainly see some heavy rain and some wind gusts to near 60 miles per hour. No new information coming in from the Weather Service or from the chat we share with media partners and with the folks who are manning the desks up there at the National Weather Service office in Johnston. I don't see anything new coming in from spotters on Twitter. It's been very quiet out there during the course of this morning. We're not getting much in the way of information at the surface. And again, this was all started by some decent rotation that showed up on the radar along with that severe thunderstorm warning. Looks like we have someone from Poweshiek County asking the Weather Service if they're going to expire that warning. And just as I say that, that warning has expired. So we will leave the air now. The tornado warning from Mahaska and Wapello has been allowed to expire as that rotation has weakened. We will break in with further updates here at WHO 13.